So if we were going to be in A, you'd want to know, where's that A bass note. Now you can put in your minor pentatonic scale off that A. You want to know the other positions, like how to get up into that higher one. Maybe how to get below that first one. So you want to know how to get all around on those things. You also want to know like the other positions. Like I say, that's the first one. Here's the second one. Third one. Fourth. Fifth. And then you're back to first. Then you want to know the one behind here, like I said, this would be your fifth position. And then this open, 03, 03, 02, 02, 1, 3, 03. Okay, so I'll have a tab with all those A minor pentatonics. Okay, so we want to know our A7 chord. We got, that's like the big major chord. Pull that pinky out of there. You got an A7. That's our 1 chord, that's our beginning chord, home bass. Now our next chord, we could come down here and think of like a D major, get this D7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. But you also have this shape here, 5, 4, 5, 3 in the middle strings there, starting on the A string. Okay, so you got that D7-9 chord there. That's like a funkier version of that 7 chord. Just has an extra note in it. It has the 9th note of the scale added to that. That happens to be that note there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we got A7, D7. Do the A7 twice. Back to D7. Do that 9 if you want. Back to the A. E7 is our turnaround. D7, A7, back to E7. So that's your 12-bar blues in A. Play your pentatonic scales over that. Okay, so let's look at some of the bends you can do in the A minor pentatonic. See, that's playing off that D, your 4 chord. This is your 1 chord note, 4 chord note, 5 chord note. So let's look at that. Here's where you can kind of, when you know you're on that A7 chord, you can play off of that major note of that 7 chord. And it's cool to know that that E right there, that's your turnaround, your very last chord of the progression. So you kind of finish with a sometimes. So stuff like that. So let's start from the turnaround. You could also do a little major one in there because that's part of that 7 chord too. So there's cool little tricks. You want to know your A7 arpeggio. So that's 5 and then 4/7 and 5/7, 6, then 5/8 and 5/9. And like I've said in other lessons, it's cool to slide into that major third. That's a major third right there. Here's your root. 1, 2, 3, as far as going up a major scale. So that's your major third. That's your minor third. When you slide into that, it creates a cool bluesy effect. There it is again. There it is again. Okay, so let's say, what if you were jamming with somebody and they said, let's play the key of C blues, but let's start on the 5 chord, so like where the turnaround starts. So first you want to find a C. Well, C is up here in the 8th fret. You know where your pentatonic scale is in there. You should know where your chord shapes are. All those different types of things. So if they wanted to start on the 5, it'd be like 2, 3, 4. And then you're off and running. And of course, if it's not a 12 bar, or if there's anything special about it, they gotta kind of tell you, or you won't know. Just be listening for stuff too. There's the whole thing of, if in doubt, lay out. So if you don't know what's coming, or it's some kind of crazy break that they never told you about, then you might just kind of wait a second and see what happens after that. What if we wanted to do one in G? Key of G, blues, 2, 3, and. Seeing a pattern here? So what if we wanted to be in the key of A and we want to start on the 5, 2, 3, and. What if you wanted to do a little arpeggio riff off that? That'd be like think about your E7 and D7. Something like that. 2, 3, and. While we're doing that, let's look at the arpeggio for E7. That's where I got that riff. And of course for D7, it's the same thing, down 2 frets. Then I went back to that. And you can kind of add some notes from the pentatonic in there when you use those arpeggio scale type things, so that they don't sound too arpeggio-ish, you know. Like I added that note in there. You can put in little flat fifths and stuff. And remember where your kind of 5 chord turnaround is. All right, so let's say, what if we were in the key of E flat? Here's where you might start, instead of jumping way up high on one of these up here, you might find out where that E flat is here and do it on the A string bass note. So we're gonna use this one and this one, and this one is our 5 chord. So here's our E flat bass note, 2, 3, and. And your pentatonic scale would be on the 11th fret. Flat and A flat 7 and E flat 7. There's one of those 13s. what that is it's like a B flat here, and then you mute the A string and have a 6, 7, and 8. It's kind of the reverse of the major shape there with that bass note. Okay, and that would be up in the 11th fret. And we know these bend notes in our first position. Those are kind of your best bending notes. When you get up to this higher position, you got that other one. So it's always good to know your first couple positions and be able to jump to any key and just start jamming the blues stuff and know where your bends are and all that. You can follow those chords really easily, have a lot of fun with that. All right, this is going to be a blues jam based on a Blues Brothers tune. This was done by Junior Wells and Buddy Guy, lots of different people. Messin' with the Kid, it's called. This was the version that I knew the best. It's from the Blues Brothers Live kind of thing. So we have this riff. Okay, that's the Messin' with the Kid head riff. So we got a little 7. This is in B. We got 7, 10, 7 on the B string. 9 on the G string, and then 7, 6, and then 9, 6, 9 on the D. So, okay, let's try that. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Okay, then we have this B7 bar chord. 7, 9, 7, 8, 7, 7. We're gonna go. So dum da dum, down, up, down. And then we got this cool riff. So that's a 7 to 9 on the A, and then 2 7s here on the D. Back to the 9 on the A, 7, 9 on the D. So. And then we go down to the E7. So this is 5th string, 7, then 9, 7, 9, 7. And we do the same riff just on this lower string, so D string and G string. We do that twice, and we go back to B7. Then we'll go up to the 5 chord. This is F sharp 7, 9, 11, 9, 11, 9. And we do that riff up here, so it's 9 and 11 on the D. Same on the G there, and then back to B. So once again, that was a 12-bar blues. So we had a B7 4 times, we had an E7 twice, back to the B7 twice, and then we had an F sharp 7 to the E7, and that's the 5 chord to the 4 chord, that's your turnaround. Then we got the 1 chord, we just do that one twice. So this one doesn't have a turnaround at the end like some 12-bar blues. Okay, so let's try that nice and slow. 2, 3, from the groove. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now sometimes it'll go from that turnaround to that main riff from the beginning. So let's go from that turnaround, 3, 4. E, riff. Okay, so let's look into getting into a jam. So we got our chords here. Now if you didn't want to do this one, some people find this one a little more comfortable to grab. That'd be your E7 also. 7, 6, 7, 5. And the F sharp 7 would be 9, 8, 9, 7. So let's try to jam on that. You got your B minor pentatonic scale. you want to practice these exercises like. And even stuff like. Where your flat fifth is. And then when you want to get into some major stuff, you got your 7s and 9s up in here, whereas 7s and 10s are your minor pentatonic. Also, this is a little major note here. Talk about that one a lot. You got your good bend notes. Now, did you know on this one here, on the second string, you'd have to bend that one way up an extra 3 frets worth, step and a half. Or else if you did a regular bend on this one, you wouldn't be in the scale anymore. You have to go to the next note of the scale, which is a D. See, that's the next note, that's a D. So this one is a 2 frets worth, 1 step bend, because the note you're going for is that F sharp. You ever seen this one? Here's where you bend a regular one up a step. Now this one is also one that would have to go 3 frets worth. So you got kind of got that one sort of from Warren Haynes. Government Mule, Warren Haynes, Allman Brothers. So once you get up there, you got these notes below you. Kind of sends you back down the other way. So just a cool riff there. So let's have you guys jam. 2, 3, and. I'll take one. See that riff from the head? Verse. Riff. Now Now we're gonna do this 3 times at the end. So let's try it 3 times in a row. 2, 3, 4. And. So that time you end on that lower note and then you hit your chord. Okay, let's do one more quick jam turn and then we'll have that ending 3 times. 2, 3, 4. Here we go. And. Last chord and. All right, Messin' with the Kid. Check out Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Blues Brothers. Lots of different people have done this one over the years. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. All right, welcome to another Blues Day Tuesday, y'all. So today I've got Back at the Chicken Shack by Jimmy Smith. Okay, so that's your basic thing. So we're in F, F7. We're gonna have this riff starting on the 3 of the D string. Now here's where we have one of those hammers into the major third of that 7 chord. So we have the 1 and the 1 on the G and the B strings. We're hammering into the 2nd finger here on the 2nd fret of the G string above that other one so they both ring. So you want it real tall there. So now you could go simple and just go into those 3s right there in the G and B string, into the 5/4. That'd be kind of the simple way. You can add some bass notes to this too, though. So it's like you can slide into that. We kind of go back the same way. So then 3s, that hammer thing, back to the bass. Now I could kind of add those bass notes with it. So I got that F in between. And sometimes if you want to go to the high part of the chord there, those little 1s, you can do that instead of that bass note. You can also go back and forth between those 5 and the 4. You could also... So you could do the tremolo picking there on that too. Think about how a piano player would do that. Bum, ba-dum, bum, they have those 2 notes going together. So there's different ways of doing that. Kind of just playing them one at a time or doing a fast kind of tremolo. We're going to come up here to the B flat, 6th fret. Back. And then we got a little riff here. So that's 5th fret on the C there, the G string, to the 5 on the 2nd string. So we got a chromatic there, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the B string, back to that C note there on the G. And then we go down here to the B flat, same riff. Now we're going to get to that 6, so we're going to pop back. We're back into it. So let's try that together. A 1, 2, a 1. Going up. Back. Turn around. Okay, so that's basically the riff to that. Now if we're gonna get into soloing over the progression, 3, 4. We're gonna have 4 bars of the F7. Go up to the 6th fret. B flat 7. Back to F7. Turn around, C7. B flat 7. F7 twice. Try it again. F7. 4 bars. B flat 7. 2 bars. Back. We got our turnaround, C7. B flat 7. F7 twice. Okay, so that's your 12 bar in F. So let's take a look at our scales we could use. We got our F minor pentatonic. We also have our F major pentatonic. Gets you in that BB box. So let's take a look at another position of the F minor pentatonic. So this is like the 3rd position. So that's our 1st position, 2nd. And the 3rd one is the one that has these 3 in a row with the same kind of shape. So that's a good combining positions. Just like this one, the 1st is a good combining positions area to get up into the 3rd position up here. This one has the same type of effect, being a good combining positions riff. Now we're all the way up to the octave now. Now think about when you got your major pentatonic riffs up in here. And we also have the arpeggio of like an F7 there. So you want to see your arpeggios. That'd be over here. Okay. F7 arpeggios in different spots. You got your B flat 7. Okay, so let's have you guys jam around. You could do it simple and have like a pentatonic minor for F and jam around with that. Here we go. 2, 3, go. Here we go again. Four chord. Back to the 1. Turn around, C7. 5 chord to 4 chord. Back to 1. I'll take 1. You guys take it. Of course, you can go quick forward on that sometimes. You can always add some different things there. Here's that quick 4 chord. Time. All right, back at the Chicken Shack, Jimmy Smith. I got a quick story for you. So when I played with James Brown, Jimmy Smith sat in with us one time, and he was in the middle playing James Brown's keyboard, and I was right over here, stage right, just a few feet away from him, and James Brown was just a couple feet on the other side. And so he was clowning, having a great time, getting the crowd going. He was doing some great solos and stuff. And at the end of it, he started doing trills on both sides of the piano, and then he took his teeth down in the middle and started hammering out notes in the middle with his teeth. Everybody went crazy. So Jimmy Smith back at the Chicken Shack. Hope you all dug that. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. All right, this is going to be a blues backing track for you to do some soloing over. So think about your G minor pentatonic scale. Think about the flat fifth in there. Think about your combining positions. You also got this one up here. And then, of course, you've got your octave. Okay, so I'm going to play some G, like 12-bar blues, and you go ahead and solo over the top of that. 2, 3, and... good jamming over that. Now let's talk about a couple of things I was doing on these chords. So this is a G7, just like a major. Pull the pinky out, and you got that flat 7 now exposed. And a dominant 7 is like a major chord. You got that happy note from a major chord, but you got that minor note from a minor scale mixed in there together. That's how you get that twang. One cool thing, if you didn't know about it for rhythm, is like, see those 2 notes in the middle of that G7? But when you go down to a C7, it's like those 2 notes are just down. And then when you go to a D7, those 2 notes are up 1. So you could just sit right here and go. Back to C. So it's kind of cool if you didn't know about that yet. So we got G7, and then I was doing like a C7, 9, and that's where we got that 3, 2, and then 3, 3, 3. We got to get that bar, all those down there. And then sometimes get that little riff going. You got those 5s from a C chord, and then you got this. You got these 3 3s, but you're hammering, doing a trill off that 4 in the G string in the middle of that chord. And it's cool to slide those up and back 2 frets. Sometimes you can walk into that D, and sometimes you can go hit that chromatic on the way down. And as you're going to that last turnaround, you can go to get into it or from either direction kind of thing, just to give it a little more spice. So. There's another G7. You got your pinky on the 6th fret of the 2nd string. And then I started coming up here and starting on this G7, 9 and going to a C7, 9. Now this is like think of a major chord. It's like a reversal of that, but you got this bass here, so you want to use these other fingers. That's a 7-13 chord. That's when you do this 9 chord, we put that pinky down there. That's a 13 chord down here. But if you wanted one up here, it looks like this. So it's 8, skip the A, 8, 9, and 10. So that's a C7, 13. D13. And you can always kind of slide these from a one fret back and up and stuff. Alright, so some blues backing tracks. Hope y'all were working your minor pentatonic and adding other things in there. Think about other things you can add when you're on the G chord. You also have the arpeggio of G7. And wherever you have a major 3, you can slide into it from a minor 3 and it sounds real cool. The way the 7 chord has major and minor. There it is again. There it is again. And then you also have these little chromatic things. And then here's your C7 arpeggio. And there's that major 3rd. And D. Hey y'all, here's a quick lesson on bends within the pentatonic minor scale. Let's say we're in A minor pentatonic. most common places to bend within this scale position is the G string 7th fret. And we're bending to the sound of the 9th fret there. So you might play that 9. Practice bending to the sound of that pitch, and you want to get to that note quick, as accurately as you can, and then give it some vibrato. So play the initial note, bend to the note, and then give it some vibrato. Now the 8th fret on the 2nd string is another good one. We're going to sound like the 10th fret when we bend that. So I got to the note as quick as I could, as accurately as I could, and then I can give it some vibrato, depending on how long we're holding that note. 10th fret here on the little E string is what this 8th fret is going to bend to the sound of. Same thing, you want to get to your note very accurately, and then you can give it some vibrato. Okay, so once again we got. Now when we come up into the 2nd position, there's our other real common bend. That should sound like the 12th fret when we bend it. And once again, we want to get there and then give it some vibrato. So let's try these again. 7th fret G, 8th fret B, 8th fret E, and 10th fret E. Okay, those are your most common bends for A minor pentatonic. Now, when we get into this next position, let's look up here. We have 2 different ways that we can combine positions that are the most common. So that gets us all the way to the 12th fret, and that was our bend note on that 10 right there. I recommend the middle finger to get up here, because then you have a finger waiting on this note. Now, there's another combining positions area that's going to get us into the higher bends. So here, 2nd position starts like this. 3rd position starts with these 3 in a row right here. And this is where we use our next combining positions riff. So 10, 12, 3 times. Then we're up to 14, 12, 14. Now we're going to go first finger on the 13. 15 to 17, 15, 17. That gets us all the way to the octave. We're back to the beginning. So these are real important combining positions areas. The other one is up here. Now what we get out of this one, we're in a new position now. This becomes our root note. This is our A, like here. See, it's a different finger handling things now. We got this middle finger on the G string on the 14th fret. That's our A now. So the 15th fret of the 2nd string should sound like the 17th when you bend it. And also down here, this one bends into our root note, our A. So 15th fret of the E string should sound like 17th when you bend it. So see that one there? 2nd finger, pinky can go underneath it. Another reason not to use a pinky for a bend, in case you want to have something underneath it to add to it. And these things are also chordal things. So you can incorporate bends with notes from the scale, and you can have notes underneath your bent note. Obviously, when you're bending on the little E string, there's nothing underneath it. But let's go through those again. So we got 7th fret G string, and there's your root. So right under your root note, that's your 4 note, and it's bending up to the 5. There's your 1. Now this one is bending from the flat 7 into the 1. So that's probably the most common, because that's the one that bends right into your note. A lot of solos will start with a bend into the root note, because you have a moment to let that note sink in, and it matches perfectly with your chord that's happening underneath, whatever type of chord it might be. Okay, and then think about when we get up here. You don't have to always go back. Once you get used to it, you don't need to go back to these low notes. You'll just remember that here's your root note again, just like it was here. Or just like it was here. Right? Same thing. So it's obviously good to see how they all connect. If you can add your flat fifths in there. Sometimes we do these exercises like they become a little more interesting when you got to put those flat fifths in there. Okay, so quick review of the most common bending spots in A minor pentatonic. That's one. That's one. That's one. That's one. And at that point, we're up on the octave. Now I'm going to give you one more before we're done here. This is also our root note, our A. So that's one. That's one. But how about a 1.5 step bend? So here, when we go to this 12th fret, the next note in the scale is the 15th. So we have to bend this 1.5 steps to get to the sound of this. Okay, so that's another good one. You got to go extra deep on that one. Here's a couple repetitive licks you can try with bends. So I'm bending that 7th fret. I want to get it all the way up to that E note there. But I'm going to go 5, 5 after that. So these two are working independently of this finger that's just hanging out. What if we add a note to that? So that's 8th fret of the 2nd string at the end. How about we pull off that 8? How about we go? And how about one more? Pull off. And you can use your pinky here if you want. Because you want to use your pinky in some of these because you want to strengthen it. But sometimes when it comes down to playing it right for a show, your ring finger is a more powerful finger. But the more you use the pinky, I just don't recommend bending with the pinky a lot because like I say, there's nothing underneath it if you wanted to do something else. And also it's very small. And unless you have really light strings, trying to bend with your pinky isn't going to do that great. Hey y'all, this is going to be a lesson on blues scale exercises. So we're going to talk about the 5 positions of E minor pentatonic to start with. That's first position. Here's second. Here's third. And fourth. And fifth. So I'm going to have all these written out on a tab with this. So take a look at that. If you want to maybe download that tab and have that sitting there while you're doing some of this stuff, it might help out a bit. So we're going to start with the first position, and I have two different exercises to get you started with. So one of them is sets of threes. We're going to start on the second note of the scale, the 3 here. So each one is ding, doom, doom. So we start on a higher note, lower, and back to the original note. Now I'm going to go ahead and play that up these strings. Easy enough, right? Okay, we're going to go backwards. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add in the flat fifth to this. That's that 1 right there on the A string. And it also adds itself right there. It's a B flat note in each situation there. So there it is. There it is again. Other than that, it's just our minor pentatonic shape. We're just adding in that flat fifth. And that makes it the official blues scale, not just a pentatonic scale, a minor pentatonic scale, but actually the blues scale because it has the flat fifth included in it. So if we look at that same exercise, sets of threes, now we're going to insert this 1 and that 3 over here on the G string into that. See how that works? All right, so now the other exercise I like to do is sets of 4s. So 4 notes at a time, moving up the scale. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add those flat fifths into this again. So it makes things a lot more interesting when you got to throw that in there. So using little kind of hammer-ons and stuff. Okay, now let's look at the second position. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to add in the flat fifth. So it's here and it's here. So we're going to do the 3s. So it makes things really weird, right? So let's do the 4s one. Third position, here's the added flat fifth, right there, right there, right there. So let's do the thirds thing. Okay, then we're gonna do the fours. Okay, fourth position. There's a flat fifth. There's a flat fifth, and we want to change our fingering to the first finger here to get that flat fifth up in there. So let's do the thirds. And the fours. And the fifth position with the flat fifth. There he goes. It's always a B flat in this key. There it is again. Okay, so let's do the thirds. And the fours. So thirds. And fours. All right, so that was threes and fours exercises with all five positions of E minor pentatonic, but with the flat fifth added to make it a full blues scale. So I hope you all dug that. It's really cool if you can add some flat fifths and be able to play them fluently in your solos. It adds a lot to your whole game, and it gives you a lot of bluesy flavor when you want to have bluesy flavor. So I hope you all dug that. There will be a tab to go with this. Study those, practice those, add those into your solos, and have some fun with it. All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.